You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Let's fire it up.
This is the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray.
Welcome back.
We're home again.
So, in the Chinese New Year, they have, in the calendar, they have like the year of the pig, the year of the ox.
That's right.
North Carolina, we have the year of the public school. Right?
that we do.
We're going to be, I guess, for a couple episodes, diving in to public education, lots of the conversation surrounding public education. This is something that I think is at the top of many, if not most, North Carolinians' political issues. Right? I mean, this is a hot button topic, this election, and we're going to be talking to a variety of people. We're going to be talking with a classroom teacher. We're going to be talking with folks, an individual who is here today, who's kind of in the more of the policy side of public education. And then we're also going to be talking to an educator, somebody who works in adult education, because many people may not think about it, but education doesn't end when you get your GED or your high school diploma. It's a lifelong process. And so adult education is often overlooked, but equally as important, if not, some would even say more important than education in the K-12 sense. But we'll get to all that later. Today, I'll let you introduce our guest.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We have Mr. Dayson Pasión. He's here. He is a Alamance County native. He graduated from Southern High School, so it's really cool to see somebody from Alamance who is continuing this work as a public servant for our schools and our kids. He's currently working on his doctorate right now at American University. He's a teacher advisor for Governor Cooper. He actually chairs that teacher advisory committee, and he also was a former educator. So I think at 8th grade science.
Eighth grade science.
Yeah. So I'm really I got to meet Dyson a couple years ago from his just passion and wanting to see a better tomorrow. We worked on a couple committees together, and so it's real exciting to see him working alongside the governor and just trying to move our state forward. So welcome, man.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, and great to see you, Quinn and Daniel, and seeing all the great things that you're doing here locally, and also like you're having an impact outside of Alamance County, which I think is amazing as well. So just happy to be here.
Well,
Thanks,
thank
man.
you. I guess I learned just now that you're a graduate from Southern Alamance.
Yes.
When you graduated, was it the Rebels or the Patriots?
It was the Patriots.
It was the Patriots.
Man, are you
Okay,
trying to
cool.
age him now?
No, I wasn't.
What's going on?
I guess my that seemed like a targeted question at you, but actually that was me reminding listeners that Southern Alamance once upon a time were the Rebels.
Okay.
Might have even been the Confederates. I need to go back and look.
Yeah, actually, I think it was.
I think it was just straight up the Confederates. Somebody can fact check me on that. That was the purpose of the question, not to date our esteemed guest.
No, not quite that old, not yet. It may look that way, but.
So, do you want to open with the first question?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit on it, so you can continue around it. I think it was 2017, Governor Cooper started with an executive order with making the teacher advisory committee. But this year, during budget season, and then right afterwards in January, he declared that 2024 was the year of public schools. So can you just kind of talk about some of the significance of that and what was behind his rationale in declaring this the year of public schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And I won't speak for the governor or his rationale, but the proclaiming when the governor proclaimed 2024 as the year of public schools, it really was as a call to action. There are amazing things happening in our public schools every day, and it just does not get elevated. Like in North Carolina, we have the highest graduation rate ever. Last year, we students in high school get tens of thousands of credentials, CTE credentials, that they're leaving high school with, that could garner high-paying wages with those credentials.
And what is CTE? I'm not familiar with that.
Sure. CTE is career and technical education.
Cool.
So
vocational training,
IT, health services, just any pathway that'll get students into a career, even education. And we have students in our public schools earning college credit. I think about 30% or a third of our students in North Carolina are earning college credit before they even graduate high school. North Carolina has the highest number of national board certified teachers in the country.
Wow. Man, it's so refreshing to hear like awesome stats, especially over the last couple months of just hearing how like,
we needed this
North
infusion
Carolina
right,
has
absolutely.
been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's been a lot of critique of public education lately, in using schools as like a political wedge, and really, those critiques come from folks who have not spent, or it's been a long time since they've been in a classroom and in a public school, and proclaiming 2024 as the year of public schools really is to be able to highlight all the great things, make sure that we're prioritizing public schools in our state, because quite frankly, the future of this state will be dependent on the students who are in our classrooms today.
Was this something that the teacher advisory committee kind of worked up with him? Because it felt like he went down to Pitt County, because the governor before this year still went to schools and was seen going into schools, but he goes to Pitt County schools, does a press conference, and he's like, boom, I'm declaring it the year of public schools, right after a few months before he came and did a state of emergency for our public education. So did y'all know that was going to happen?
So on the policy team, we did know that Governor Cooper really did want to prioritize public education this year. It's always been a priority for the governor, but really did want the focus of this year to be on public schools. Last year with the state of emergency, that really was a siren call about voucher expansion and how that would impact our public schools. And we did a series of roundtable discussions with educators, county commissioners, school board members, business leaders in some counties that would have been highly impacted with the vouchers. And I think through what we learned about wanting to have people aware of how vouchers would impact public education, I think one thing that we also wanted to highlight was, when we're talking about choice, over 80% of school-age children and their families are already choosing public schools.
Right.
And wanting to highlight all the great things happening in schools, in public schools especially, is really sort of where this year of public schools sort of stemmed from.
Yeah, man, the voucher situation. I was listening actually to one of the roundtables Cooper had, and it was the superintendent from Thomasville was speaking, and she was saying that in rural counties that they don't have many private schools or charter schools or school choice. And if people did do that, the demand for funds to rural county schools are way higher. So I think, people here in Alamance or in even more dense counties, they don't really see that effect of what it's going to have to more of the western and eastern counties that we have.
Yeah, and when we look outside of North Carolina, like some of the states that have already expanded vouchers or are trying to expand vouchers, a lot of the pushback that we've seen come from rural counties. Their legislators have come back and said, this is impact or will impact our counties a lot greater than some of the more urban counties, and it's not fair for our public
That's
schools.
why we're doing this Leandro case, right? I mean, It came from that.
So just to break things down a little bit for listeners, right? What you're saying is any time taxpayer dollars are diverted away from public schools to fund private schools, right? And a lot of times these are schools that lack really lots of oversight, lack accountability, intellectual accountability, or I should say educational accountability, maybe financial accountability. Anytime that money is diverted into those kinds of programs, it has a disproportionately negative impact on rural counties and rural communities.
Yes.
And a lot of it's from what you're saying, a lot of elected representatives who may at one point have supported vouchers under the guise of school choice, right? Giving citizens an option in terms of where they send their kid to school, come back to the table, come back to Raleigh, to committee meetings and say, actually, I've seen now what this is doing and we need to pump the brakes.
Yeah. And I think another thing, and you started talking about it, is just the accountability of some of these private schools. When you look at private school systems across or not systems, but private schools across the country. North Carolina has one of the least regulated systems to oversee private schools.
Sure.
So as we're spending public dollars on private schools, we have no way of knowing if that money is being used effectively.
I saw today there was a clip of the pastor.
Down in Union County.
Union County. He
Got $900,000 in our money.
our money, and saying if he was on a jury of a girl that got raped because she was dressed scandalous.
Well, no, I mean, I just was wearing shorts, right? I mean, like not even. I mean, just was just essentially
Dressed like that, in quotes.
right.
That if he was on the jury, he would deem the guy innocent.
Couldn't convict
Because he's
men
a
are
man.
men. Because
Yeah.
men are men, right? And that guy runs a school who got $900,000 of our taxpayer
taxpayer,
money,
yep.
right? So when I mean, clearly the standards are at the floor. So your official title is teacher advisor to the governor, right? Could you tell us a little bit about what that means? What is in that job description? That's a really unique title.
Sure. So as teacher advisor, I'm on the policy team and another policy advisor, but my focus really is, or portfolio is K-12 education and really how teachers are impacted through policy. And the position was actually started with Governor Hunt, who wanted to make sure that there was someone who was in the classroom recently informing
A stakeholder, really. Yeah.
informing on education policy.
So did after Hunt, did the teacher advisory committee go away?
It's been up to every governor at that point.
So maybe it's been kind of intermittent, right? Like it's there and then disappears for 4 years. I'd have to look. I'm not sure, but it sounds like it's kind of like you said. It kind of goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back, off and on. Do you maintain? Are you still a teacher? Do you still teach?
No.
Okay.
So
I was gonna say that'd be really. I don't know how you'd manage that. I was gonna say, and that's two crazy full-time commitments. So, but you obviously have classroom teaching experience. You know what that's like to be in a classroom environment as an educator. Was it tough to leave the classroom to do this, to work in policy, because it's a whole different side of education?
it was. I did have to think about it quite a bit because I was in the classroom, and then I was in Chapel Hill Carborough City Schools for a little bit, sort of supporting educators and administrators in trying to create more inclusive classrooms. And I think sort of seeing the impact that a position like that could have on a school or district made me realize, what kind of impact someone could have on a state level.
Yeah.
And really wanted to sort of learn alongside of the other policy advisors. I mean, saw it as a great opportunity and sort of fit into the career path I wanted to take at that time.
I mean, you must clearly know your shit because, not only are you a teacher advisor, but you're the chair of it. So what added responsibilities does that do? Who else is the teacher? What, is there 25 teacher advisors?
Yeah, and through the executive order, we meet at least 4 times a year to advise and inform the governor on education issues. And then we also bring information to the other committee members so that they can then take information back to their locales and share in their networks.
So how are you gathering this information? Are you going to school boards? Are you just calling up teachers, emailing, doing visits, random stop-ins? How do you get this information? How does a teacher advisor on this committee gather this information?
Yeah, so they gather information that would inform, our policy team and senior staff and the governor just through their networks, through talking with their colleagues. A lot of the committee members are well connected in the state of North Carolina in education. A lot of them represent various groups. So being able to have their perspective to inform on some of the policy making that happens is very valuable. And then when we're thinking about sort of information to share with the other committee members, we like to bring in presenters who can give us information on upcoming changes to policy or new programs that would have an impact on educators across the state.
Like the science of reading or whatever's happening right now.
Yeah, or the new design of the teacher working condition survey. So that'll be rolling out
pretty soon. I had to take that a couple of years ago. I have a couple questions. One I wanted to touch on is, so I was a classroom teacher for 5 years. I taught at a charter school, and I have really complicated feelings towards charter schools. I taught at a school that I'm still very proud of. I really like my alma mater, and I think in many ways it serves as a model for what charter schools can be. It was an environment that I think provided students with not just academically rigorous, a great learning environment, but also just it was emotionally healthy, and I love that. But also, we read in the newspapers, online, all the horror stories that come from charter schools that are not paragons of financial management, right? And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. This is the year of public schools. Does that include charter schools? I mean, I think for many people, they don't consider charter schools to be public schools. Or at least they're kind of in a nebulous area. They're kind of private, kind of public, because they're administered by a board as opposed to maybe the local school system. I mean, could you shed light on that?
Yeah. So yeah, I think a lot of people do forget that charter schools are public schools. Those are publicly funded schools, and they're another sort of version of schools of choice. And the original concepts were for charter schools to be laboratories, where we can provide some flexibility, more flexibility than what we see in our traditional public schools, to try innovative new ways of teaching, innovative scheduling, and see what we learn from them and see if that can be implemented back in public schools, or our traditional public schools.
Okay.
I think what we've forgotten to do is that evaluating and what we're learning in those charter schools, and then bringing that back. We've lost that communication between the charter schools and traditional public schools.
So is that part of the teaching advisor committee?
Rein it back in. Connect. I mean, yeah.
It hasn't come up, but it could.
Yeah.
It could be something that we could provide some counsel on. I think.
I'm not trying to add more work to your plate, man.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to providing choice, I think that an impact, and whether it was unforeseen or not, of charter schools was the use of charter schools to segregate our schools again. And that's not every locale, that's not every charter school.
Yeah, but right. I mean, I think if anybody in Alamance County, but even across the state, if you just think about like that one charter school that everybody goes to in your county, I mean, just think about it, right? The students that go there, because it's a lottery system, but it's also if your brother went there or sister went there,
right? There's preferential admission for sure.
It kind of just stays that segregated way. That makes sense, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate you for taking that question, for the thoughtful response. I want to shift gears now to Drive. Shift gears, Drive. You see what Tell us about Drive. There's a task force. Governor Cooper got a report. Could you tell our listeners what that is, what that task force is, what that report says?
Sure. So the Drive task force, or the developing a representative and inclusive vision for education task force, was established in 2019 through executive order, and it really was a way to provide the state, or the governor, and through the governor of the state, a set of recommendations to increase the ethnic, racial, and linguistic diversity of our educator workforce. So they are established in 2019, and then through 2020, they work on their initial report and provide the governor with a set of 10 recommendations and 46 strategies on January 1st of 2021. So the task force was meeting virtually, listening to experts in the field on what has been the impact for educators of color in our education system, what are barriers, and what may be some ways forward in increasing our educator diversity. So the report comes out, and not only does it have the recommendations and strategies, but it also has background on what educators of color see every day and experience, and what barriers they have. So there's context in the report as well. And originally the task force had a 2-year expiration, but task force members were like, there's still a lot more work to do.
Mm-hmm. Always.
And went back and wanted to ask the governor for an extension on their work so that they could have more impact. So the governor extended the task force through another executive order. And in the last 2 years, the task force has provided a plan of action So they didn't want the reports to, sit on a desk and gather
Right.
dust. They provided a plan of action for state and local level actors to implement those recommendations. And in this past year, the Drive Task Force went on tour. So we went across the state to highlight different practices and programs that have had a positive impact on the preparation, recruitment, support, and retention of educators of color across the state of North Carolina.
So the report came out, like you were saying, January 1st, 2021. But in the intervening time, what have we seen? Are there metrics of progress? I mean, obviously you said the task force has been extended because there's so much work that needs to be done. But have you seen, I guess, give us some hope?
Yes. So I think we all know the pandemic had an impact on teacher recruitment and retention. We did see some positives. One of the impacts of COVID was sort of when you're going into the teaching profession, there are a set of licensure exams or exams to either get into your educator preparation program. And then once you're in that educator preparation program and graduated, there are another set of teacher licensure exams to make sure that you're getting licensed. We saw an increase on teachers getting into and graduating from their educator preparation program because there was a little bit more flexibility during the pandemic.
And I can Google my answers. I'm kidding.
But we did see an uptick in teacher candidates enrolling into educator preparation programs, especially teacher candidates of color. But there's still more work to be done. There's still a significant gap between the retention of white teachers versus educators of color that needs to be addressed. And while the executive order actually just expired, so the task force sunset in December of last year, that work is now moving forward through sort of a coalition of organizations being led by the Dudley Flood Center.
I was reading over the report. I shouldn't say reading, skimming. I got to say, I was cramming for this exam. And one thing I kept thinking about was I wonder, was there any backlash to this report? Because this seems to be the kind of thing that attracts a certain segment of our political landscape, right? You start talking about DEI, CRT, alphabet soup. There are a lot of people who capitalize upon this, who see this as a political opportunity. And I just wonder, can you speak to that? Did you experience any backlash? Did you have to, as somebody who's advocating not just for public education, but equity in public education, diversity, representation in public education, how did you have to respond to naysayers, to haters? And if so, what did you say?
Don't remember anyone addressing the task force specifically.
Okay.
And I think from the task force's perspective, it was more about how do we make sure we are communicating the need for a more diverse teaching workforce without really getting into the fray.
Just saying above politics, right?
Yeah.
And just saying, look, these are the conditions in schools. This is the need. We are trying to find creative and practical solutions to meet that need.
Right.
Yeah.
We have significant shortages in our teaching workforce. This is a way to recruit more teachers.
Right.
We know that public schools are an economic driver. Having a high quality educator in every classroom ensures that businesses want to stay in those communities. And the research that not only do educators of color have a positive impact on students of color, but they have a positive impact on students overall. So having a more diverse educator workforce has a positive impact on all students.
I can tell you right now that I have many educators made an impact on me, but like the number one, Okasha Musa, he was from Ghana. I mean, he and I are if you look at our respective biographies, our Venn diagrams didn't overlap a whole lot. And in terms of impact, I mean, I owe a great deal of who I am to him, right? I'm not a person of color, but I certainly had my life change exponentially for the better because of a teacher of color. So
yeah, no, my love for science came from Mr. Sturdivant. He was the first black male teacher I ever had in 10th grade.
Wow.
And just seeing his passion for science like drove that for me.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on 30 minutes. Dyson, thank you for driving over to see us. And we know this was not, I mean, this was not the most convenient use of your Sunday, but we really appreciate you coming to visit the Holler and shed some light on this important topic from the policymaking side. I mean, I think this is an area that many people don't hear about because, like you're saying, it's not playing political games, right? You are trying to find practical solutions. You're not trying to find your way in front of a camera, trying to get on talk shows and things like that. So I think a lot of this work is done behind closed doors, and rightfully so, to keep it apolitical, to keep it results driven and out of the fray, as you said. But I really appreciate you coming on and kind of giving our listeners a peek into that room where the decisions are being made and the people making those decisions. That's important to see.
And where can people find you at? Are you on the socials? Can people follow what's happening?
Sure. I'm on social at Mr. D Pasión. Created that handle when I was a classroom educator and just stuck with it. Yeah. And I know our time is coming up, but would love to assign some homework to our listeners if possible. And it's the same homework that the governor assigns whenever he's...
Oh, I love this. Keep going.
Governor assigns homework. All right.
Yeah. Whenever he's visiting a school, there are 4 things that the governor asks when we reach out and speak to legislators and candidates who are running for those offices when it comes to our public schools. And that is, to visit a public school and to learn all the great things that are happening. So, and calling for a moratorium on the private school vouchers until our public schools are fully funded. Third is, paying our teachers as the professionals that they are and we expect them to be. And the fourth is asking for significant investments in our early childhood education and childcare systems.
Because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Man, everybody should get an A on this homework. It's pretty easy.
Thank you both.